this is probably going to be quite challenging for me. For the last 6 months, I've been studying the science of the hair and the scalp. The study has been something that I have been wanting to do for such a long time. So in this video, I wanted to do a deep dive basically on what trichology even is, what I actually studied, how I found it, and what I'm actually going to do next. And just a disclaimer that I'm a trichologist in training, so I have only done the initial 6 months course. So this is just my initial thoughts on the 6-month course. Firstly, what even is trichology? Trichology simply is the study of the hair and the scalp. There is so much misinformation online. They're all about the scalp and all about the hair. And so it's super hard to differentiate between what is true and what is false. And studying trichology for me was all about working out where to tell the difference and what is actually misinformation and what is actually true. Studying trichology actually happened to me quite randomly. I just ended up having an interest in the hair and the scalp, and I started making videos online about how to take care of my curly hair, basically how to heal my hair. Basically was learning how to go on my own hair journey to healthy, beautiful curls. And one of the things I ended up coming across is a lot of information online that just either wasn't true or was just really unhelpful, or I suspected that it wasn't true. Clinical trichology is basically just a specialism within a specialism and is a branch of dermatology essentially. So dermatology being the study of the skin, and the hair and the scalp is obviously part of what makes up the skin. It's actually, the hair is an appendage of the skin. And so trichology and clinical trichology is essentially just a specialism within dermatology. I chose to study trichology through the Institute of Trichologists. It's based in Harley Street in London. I chose to study at the Institute just because of the history surrounding the Institute, and it has probably the best reputation one of the best reputations that I found online for studying trichology. The trichology qualification itself is 2.5 years long, and so I have only done the initial 6 months makes up a whole part of the 2.5 year qualification. I found out about trichology just through my own research online. I started making hair content and making hair videos probably about 12 months ago now, and I came across trichology online and thought, knowing the science behind this and actually being able to recommend products and recommend things that are actually based in science was actually really important to me. I came from a background in psychology and criminology, and so having the knowledge to be able to back up my ideas was actually really, really important to me. And I wanted to make sure that the information that I was sharing online was actually helping people rather than just contributing to the problem of misinformation online. So one of the things that they actually teach you in trichology is it's not just about doing all the in-clinic training and helping patients, but it's also about working out ingredients for products and evaluating information about products and different kind of applications for the hair and the scalp. So going into the initial 6-month course, I honestly didn't really know what to expect. I personally hadn't studied in quite a few years, and so I thought to myself, this is probably going to be quite challenging for me, coming from a background of, like I said, I did study previously, and so I know kind of what a study environment and what study entails. But I think that I knew that this was going to be challenging for me just because a lot of this stuff was really science-based. But I think that I was quite surprised about the amount of effort that was actually required. So when they initially talk to you about studying, they recommend about 10 to 15 hours a week. And I would say that that is definitely a minimum of how much effort you actually have to put in when it comes to studying this course just in general. The course is broken up into 5 different modules. The first module is academic essay writing. The second module is all about just the profession of trichology, which starts touching on the skin and the hair. The third unit is basic science. The fourth unit is microbiology, and the fifth unit is the skin and the hair. So it is a really kind of comprehensive introduction into trichology. And honestly, all of the units I found actually fairly challenging, but also just super, super interesting. And honestly, it was probably one of the most interesting kind of courses that I have probably ever done. I think that the amount that I learned in that 6 months, even though there was so much packed in, like there's no way that I would be able to ever go through absolutely everything that we touched on, but it was absolutely one of the best things I've done in terms of learning how to look after my own hair and scalp properly, but also kind of starting to give me that knowledge to be able to actually share that and help other people with those things as well. You do those 5 units, and you have to do an assignment for all those units. So there's one assignment per unit, and those are due throughout the 6 months. The first unit has actually got an additional assignment in it because you have to complete 2 essays as part of your academic essay writing component of the course. And the academic essay writing requires quite a lot of research, and it requires you to be able to, independently evaluate and read through a ton and ton of research. And so coming up with your own ideas and formulating these kind of things is something that they start really getting you practicing in this initial 6-month course. The profession of trichology starts kind of diving into, different hair and skin disorders, so disorders of the hair and the skin, but also just teaches you more broadly about the trichology profession and sort of what trichologists can end up doing with the qualification once they finish, because there's actually so many different things that trichologists actually end up doing. Sometimes people will go on to be things like expert witnesses, or help inform in the media, or inform products, or maybe make their own products themselves. So there's actually, or even work in clinic kind of environments. And so there is just so many things that the trichologist can actually help with and do once getting that full qualification. The basic science paper was actually probably my favorite paper. And I know that is probably actually microbiology was probably my second favorite out of seriously all the papers. I found the microbiology one super fascinating. So of course we studied bacteria, viruses, fungi, and yeast as well, because all of those microorganisms and everything like that make up the microbiota of the skin, and of course that affects like the hair and the scalp as well. So that was super, super fascinating. And then just the basic science, because you need a general basic science understanding in order to be able to study a medical qualification like this one. And so it was really, really fascinating. And I'm kind of skipping ahead, but the exam itself, the way that the basic science and microbiology exam questions were structured were way more how I like to be examined and how I like to be able to answer questions. There was felt like there was more options to get points in the exam for basic science and microbiology, because they were more short answer questions, they were lower points, but there was almost more questions. So with the unit of trichology, the second unit and the 5th unit, they were way more long answer types of questions in that exam. So of course, after all of the assignments are in, which you have to submit those assignments in order to be able to get through this initial 6 months, you have to sit an exam. They give you 6 weeks after your final assignment is due to be able to study for your exam, which I didn't think would be enough time at the start, but it is actually probably the perfect amount of time. I would say that I was probably ready. I felt like I was ready for the exam after probably about 5 weeks of studying, but then I think that extra week just got me just that little bit extra to be able to prepare like fully for it. I am also still waiting for my exam results. So once you sit the exam, you've got to wait 6 weeks for your results. The exam itself is just a fully proctored, just like a GCSE exam in the UK. It's fully closed book. You're actually watched throughout the entire thing and it's recorded. So honestly, the thing about it as well is that it's really time pressured. There is not enough time to be looking at books, looking at notes, going out of the room to do anything. You are on that computer for 3 hours and you are typing. Like, you do not have time to do anything else. And so that's the one thing I think that if this was ever something that anybody would want to study, I think that it's really important to kind of know that all that knowledge really needs to be in your head so that you can get it straight down on the computer while you're doing that exam, because it definitely was time pressured and you really have to just work through those questions pretty methodically in order to be able to get through the entire exam itself. But yeah, the initial 6-month course, it was no joke. I think that anybody who has studied trichology before or just studied maybe in general knows how challenging and how time consuming and just how stressful studying and doing exams can actually be. And so it's not just probably a course that you can kind of just do and think that you will not be able to dedicate the time to it. It's definitely something that you have to be really like wanting to do, because there is definitely, although it is a part-time distance course, you still have to put in the time in order to be able to get the grades and pass the exam and be able to kind of get what you want out of it. Off the back of the 6 months, you end up with a certificate, but that doesn't make you a qualified trichologist. You have to do the further 2 years of study to be able to get the full qualification. But the initial 6-month course does give you a real taster for what it's going to be like. The further 2 years, as much as I know now, it sort of starts to go deeper into the topic. So it doesn't necessarily get harder, it just kind of goes deeper into the stuff that we have already covered in the 6 months. And so, and of course you start to do all the in-clinic training and actually start to see some of these hair and scalp disorders, which is kind of probably one of the most exciting parts. I learned so much. I think that one of the things that I really wanted to do when I first started studying was literally from the day I started studying trichology, I wanted to start implementing everything that I learned into my own hair journey. So my hair, I've got naturally quite curly hair, and so part of that is learning how to actually care for curly hair really, really well. My hair was also quite bleached at the time when I started studying trichology, and one of the first things that I did was stop bleaching my hair. Basically, I think once you start learning about the hair and you get a real understanding of how the hair is made up, you learn more about like the hair shaft and the components that make that up, and you learn about the hair follicle and how the hair actually regulates itself and how it grows. You get this new appreciation for just how amazing that entire process actually is. And so you start thinking about things like mechanical and chemical damage that we end up doing to the hair, and it makes you sort of feel a little bit kind of sorry for your own hair. Ended up, as soon as I kind of started to learn the actual science behind the hair and the mechanics and how it actually worked, you thought, oh, I really should be looking after this quite a lot more. And oh, what I've been doing, I need to be thinking about that a bit more. And I think that if more people like knew how it worked and could understand like fully what they were actually doing to the hair, then I think that everybody would be able to be Rapunzel. I think that hair care, just like most things, is kind of all about like the basics. So implementing those basics and everything that I was learning in trichology into my own hair journey, and then being able to relay that back and like share that with people was kind of my thing that I really wanted to be able to do and wanted to be able to like share that. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, does it actually work? You know, I'm 6 months into my Trichology journey and implementing everything I have been learning about the hair and the scalp. It might be interesting, like, I might put some pictures in here of what my hair was looking like kind of before I started studying, or just before I started studying, versus what it looks like now. And that was only literally 6 months difference. Further on into the qualification, how much difference does it actually make? Does it work? You know, can that be proven? And I wanted to share that so that other people would be able to see a journey like that and be like, okay, well, that's actually rooted in science. That stuff actually works. Because I think that there's a lot of things that you learn in Trichology that, well, you start unlearning things when you study Trichology, and you start being able to notice and be aware of the things that don't work. But I think, you know, someone that might have like genetically like really like crazy long hair, like the 1 in a billion people, they're recommending certain things, and people are going to look at that and think, oh yeah, okay, well that's what I should follow. But is that actually based in science? Like, is this actually going to help? And so being able to show a journey that's actually based in science, I think is really important for people to actually see. So what am I going to do next? I'm absolutely super excited to wait for these results in 6 weeks time. Well, it's probably more about like 4.5 weeks now. And I just cannot wait. I really want to, felt like the exam did go well, but of course with these things that you never really fully know until you get the exam results. So I'm waiting for those results and waiting to see if it's going to be feasible for me to continue on into the further 2 years of study for this. It's absolutely my plan to continue on with Trichology and keep experimenting with my own hair and implementing all these things that I'm learning, and then be able to relay them back. So that's absolutely the intention. But of course, you have to kind of wait for these results. As you progress in Trichology through year 1 and year 2, the pass rate actually goes up. So I think it's like something like 65% you actually have to get in year 1, I think, and maybe even higher or around there in year 2 as well. So it's not just a C's categories 50% pass mark anymore. You actually have to be, that much level higher. And that kind of makes sense for, a face-to-face sort of clinical practice and looking after people's, skin and hair and scalp. So my intention is 100% to continue on with the study, and of course that's going to mean spending a portion of time in London and doing this in clinic training. That's absolutely a non-negotiable as part of this course. So that's also really exciting. I've got a lot of family over in England because my dad is English, so it's actually probably a really exciting thing for me to be able to spend some more time over in the UK. So yeah, that was all my explanation of Trichology and how I have found the last sort of 6 months or so. I really hope that this was kind of informative or helpful or a little bit interesting, and that if you've got any questions about Trichology or the hair and the scalp, just let me know. I've never been more interested in a subject in my entire life, so I love talking about it. So if you have any questions at all, or if you've thought about studying this yourself, then just let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions at all. There is some information, like specific details or specific course materials that we're not allowed to share, but general details about the course is definitely something that I can talk to people about and I can share. I also have a bunch of free resources that I have available, and I'll link these in the description box below, so please take advantage of those. They include like a free hair guide, and I'm also starting to build out a free hair wiki, which has got a bunch of information including sort of basic hair care routines, how to wash your hair, just all of the really important basics that I'm putting all in that wiki. That wiki is a living document, so I'm adding stuff all the time to that, so please check that out. I will leave all the links for everything that I have that are free and accessible to anyone that is following any of my socials. If you like this video, please subscribe. That will be the only thing that I will ever ask for you to do other than checking out my free resources. So please click the subscribe button below. That would absolutely mean the world to me. See you next time. Bye.